Maybe
into
that's
it,
what
I
you meant.
think. Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, well, oh, sorry. Welcome everyone that has managed to come in person. And Cara, have we got those online now and all happening? Double checking. Oh, yeah. And we're just recording as well, aren't we? So that it can go up on the website, right? So I think we've got 5 participants online as well. Just make sure they can hear us and everything. All sorted, you think? Yep, great. Okay. We will begin this meeting then with our karakia. Tua ki runga, tua ki raro, tua ki waho, tua ki roto, tua ki te here tangara, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao, umie, huie, taiki. Awesome. So we just need to confirm the agenda. There are a couple of little changes, weren't there?
Yes, yeah. So it just circulated around the table as just an amendment to the appendix in the work plan around the community resilience guides. And circulated earlier in the week was an amendment to the NEMA report.
Yeah, good one. Other than that, nothing to change, I don't think. So the apologies then. Shall we read out who we've got so far?
So we have Mike Janine, Dave Wood, and Kelly.
Yeah. Anyone else? No.
Matt Alley.
Yeah.
We'll throw them into it.
Someone had to look after the kids.
Yeah.
Not gonna be online.
I'm expecting Alex either here or to Zoom
Yeah.
in, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, might be.
So it might be just
apology
for
lateness.
lateness, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You, Madam Chair.
Alex from Waitaki. Yeah.
Lateness for Sandy.
Okay.
I think it's 4 minutes past and she's not here.
I can move those. Does somebody want to second them? Yep. Jules, you can be the seconder. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. All right, we got minutes there as well. Just making sure that those are accurate.
Just on behalf of Brian, and the apologies, he's spelt with an I.
Oh,
And in the membership,
Yes.
it's the wrong mayor, but then I am in attendance further down, so
Is it the wrong me though?
yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
You will note, Gary, that it is.
We haven't voted on it.
Do you want him back?
No.
Apparently the public.
No, they didn't.
So I did not introduce as well. We have Cara with us, and Cara's going to be
Okay.
taking the minutes, but she has joined us. What's your official title?
Governance Support Officer.
Governance Support Officer. So often seen in the council chamber as well in this seat, assisting us with council meetings as well. So has a lot of experience and joins us from which council?
Regional Tourism from Thames Coromandel.
Oh yeah.
Tim's coming.
Nice.
Himself.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Know
yeah.
Lynn well.
So yeah, we're really lucky to have Cara, but it is her first meeting with us, so she'll be just getting to know names and things. So feel free to ask us if you miss any names or amendments that we're trying to make here. So all good on recording those? Great. Yep. Any other changes to or alterations we need to make to those minutes? No. Okay, somebody here to move those as true and accurate then. Yep, Tamar and seconded Jules. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And we're on to the first report, which is our group managers update, which was authored by Matt, but Glenn and I had a bit of a catch up beforehand, and he's well and truly over all the matters in here. So Glenn, did you want to take us through them?
Very much happy to take it as read.
Yeah.
As Matt has noted here, we now have a full complement with Dave Grimes starting in the Queenstown team a couple of weeks ago. And gone through starting to get his feet under the desk there. The after action.
Sorry,
Thank you.
it just helps those online.
After action review, just noting that the draft report came out early this year, provided some feedback to the author, and we are looking at the final report being received by the end of April. So they'll be in time for the next round for the KEG report, KEG meeting, and then the following joint committee. And then just an update from Matt on work that he has been involved with at the national level around the Emergency Management System Improvement Program and the Emergency Management Bill, both of which I think are also covered in the NEMA report.
Any questions on those before we go to emerging risks? I was just wondering on the emergency management bill, the 4 weeks for submissions, how the submissions will be, whether we're going to do a submission and how it will be collated and submitted.
Yeah, so I haven't had that discussion with Matt, but given that tight time frame, we'd be looking at drafting something and then circulating that to the group for any comments, and then we would submit on the group's behalf.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that sounds the only feasible way forward at the time frame. Yeah. Yeah, the rest is reasonably straightforward. I had an opportunity, opportunity to meet online along with all the other chairs of joint committees from across the country with the minister as well, and he just was basically hosting a open session for questions on either of those two legislative processes. So yeah. There was nothing much to report from that. It was just a chance to build relationships, I think, with the joint chairs, but also he was just reiterating his message of since having become the minister, he came into the job thinking that he would have a lot of work to do, and since then, there's been 8 emergencies across the country. He's actually really impressed with civil defence and emergency management response right across the country in terms of decisiveness and the actions that we take. So he just came in straight up with that message. He is actually really impressed. So that was good to hear as well. So yeah, we're on to now probably the emerging risks table there, and some of those are reasonably important to talk about. So maybe if you want to work through those.
Yeah. So Matt thought it was appropriate to sort of collate a summary of some of the issues that are sort of popping ahead and making sure that the joint committee is aware of. Some of these are going to come out of either the after action review, which is still the final report is still to come, or in some cases things that we've noted from the exercise report, which is also in the agenda, following the round of exercise Hatata activities late last year. So recognising, particularly with the local recovery framework, we know that Dunedin City has had some issues post the October flood event in terms of just support of some of the residents that are still out of their homes and what have you, and there's no clearly defined recovery framework locally that we have in place, noting that we are looking to have a regional recovery framework draft at least in place by June this year and circulated. That'll be then followed up with socialisation with local recovery managers and following workshop to go with that. The viability of EOCs and ECCs, including alternates, so that this has come out of the exerciser Hatata report, and certain feedback from a number of the participants is around the suitability of the venues that are being used, and recognising some of the difficulties with effectively taking over a council chambers or some venue like that to be an EOC. Whilst it might be a short time, how does that work for a longer duration event? He's really just signalling that these are issues that might need to be considered. Also, in working towards the review of the current group plan, we've recognised that there isn't a lot of hazard-specific planning, response planning in place. We have that for, I guess generally we have the most frequent event, the flood event, but the likes of the work that's being done with the CAT plan, the catastrophic event plan focusing on AF8, we have been putting a lot of effort into a regional response plan for that. But of course, the regional response plan needs to take into account local response planning and also national response planning. And there's probably a bit of an absence at either end of that scale. So some challenges there. The resources to operate in the civil defence centres, again, is coming out of the exercise report, and some difficulties with council staff being able to access online equipment and what have you in those events. The limited engagement by lifeline utility providers. Mel can probably speak to that when she's talking to the Lifelines update, but certainly I'm aware of some difficulties with getting traction from lifeline utility operators around surveys on what is the work plan going to be for that Lifelines group. So it's been a bit difficult to get those lifeline utilities fully engaged in that work. And again, coming out of the review of the current group plan and looking towards the next iteration of the group plan, we've sort of identified that we don't have a lot of visibility of what councils are doing in the risk reduction space, and whether this committee needs to be thinking about how you can have visibility as to what is happening in that risk reduction space, whether that's some form of reporting mechanism through care. Leaving that for the committee to ponder. And then the last one there being the lack of a group plan, long-term planning alignment, noting that currently I think only one of the council long-term plans has any reference to civil defence in it, and even that's just very light. So just very looking to ways in which we can get that synergy and that alignment of the group plan and the long-term plans in place. So following the current group plan review, I think that leaves us in a good place to be looking at council's next long-term planning process and ensuring that what's in the group plan is captured in council long-term plans.
Can I ask, we've done our LTP. Are all three of you going through it now?
We're in it at the moment. Yep.
Yep.
So can it still be put on?
Theoretically, yeah. I'll talk to Peter about it because it's a bit of a sad indictment, but something that we are responsible for is not in our long-term plan. Which council has it in?
Yeah.
Certainly, I'm aware Queenstown Lakes have had, and I think Dunedin City is looking at looking at that in this current long-term plan process. There are some points and measures going into.
So, yeah, and what do you mean in the long-term plan? What do you expect, and what would you like to see in our long-term plan about civil defence?
Well, I think it's really it should reflect what's in the Civil Defence Partnership Agreement with the 6 councils, and recognising that emergency management is a council business as usual activity. Particularly again, what are councils doing in the likes of the risk reduction space, and a readiness for response, capturing all of that.
So yeah, this table is we're just coming back to the bigger picture of what this table is and what it's presenting here. does it come from anywhere? Because I know you mentioned the, what is it, the exercise partially came, does it fully come from that, or?
No.
So how's this been generated?
I think that
And
what we're doing here is capturing things that Emergency Management Otago has been conscious of, but
Right.
not necessarily bringing it to the attention of PEG and the Joint Committee.
Okay, yeah. So this is a new way of bringing to our attention some of the key issues that are front of mind for the team. So that's really helpful. But yeah, some of these are quite significant. So and we're being asked for some input too. So we just need to, I think, have a good think about how we're gonna give the best feedback we can and work on that so we can have some value add. Yeah, for example, that last one where, second last one, limited visibility of council risk reduction activity. That's reasonably complex, what's being asked for there, which I think, for example, some councils have audit and risk committees where they do deep dives into particular topics, and they might be doing a deep dive into, I don't know what, hazards management or something across or at least doing a good big look at risks across. And so it's transparent and easy to point to all that stuff, or we're lacking that as a cohesive thing for Otago at the moment. I think it's the message we're getting, and how do we achieve that? And there's a number of others too, like have we got facilities that are fit for purpose? We haven't got hazard specific planning going on, which, some of these we haven't really thought about before either, and they are really important. So
I'm conscious that certainly the work that Matt has been doing at national level, we're aware that there is definitely going to be a push towards an auditing process nationally for how emergency management is delivered throughout the country, and with this, I guess what we're trying to do is get ahead of that auditing process and not be found extremely wanting once we are being assessed. By actually addressing some of these issues now.
Yep, go ahead. We'll go with Jules and then Tamer, sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of this analysis, have we got any detailed breakdown of what does it all mean? What are the specific things we're missing? What are the specific things we could or should be doing? Any guidance of that, or is this more
I don't at this stage.
Generalization,
and that might be something for this committee to be asking for it to go back.
Richard.
So my reading of this is that these are the top of mind issues for your group controller for civil defence in the region. So there will be some data that supports these, but at the joint committee level, these are the things that he is telling you need some attention regionally for us to be prepared for good response. My sense reading these is a lot of this comes down to probably a lack of communication between council staff are involved in this. I know that a lot of the stuff will be happening at council level because it's a lot of it's BAU stuff. And my sense is that the civil defence, and Glenn, you have to correct me because I'll probably get the name wrong. There's a coordination group which is sort of senior staff responsible for civil defence amongst the councils.
My son's just ringing. I'll just quickly see what it is. Sorry.
Is it a coordination? I don't, anyway.
We
there's a
call it
group-
liaison group.
Yes,
Yes.
that's it. So there's a civil defence liaison group, which is senior staff responsible for civil defence functions within the council. And I think that KEG should be expecting that group gets more active and answers some of these questions, because I suspect that a lot of it is being done. But it may just not be being connected and then communicated through between a council work program, business as usual work program, and then the civil defence program, so we can connect the dots. But that is what I think Matt is just flagging, is that we need to be better coordinated. So in the event of an event, we're confident that there are things in place and that they're known to each council collectively.
So I think it's about that prior communication, so that the in the moment communication happens as well, but probably sufficient communication happens in the moment, given that there's a range of experience in the people doing stuff. However, what you're saying is having that prior communication so that everybody is on the same page, everybody knows what's supposed to happen in Clutha or, Cromwell or Dunedin, when such, something happens, at least they can go and look and find out, know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that everyone's really busy and this is
Yes.
another task, but in the event of an emergency, this will be really valuable.
That's
If
right.
we are well connected and we know what work has been going on.
Yep, so who's going to coordinate this? Where's the guidance on it? Where's the list of specific things that we need to do? I mean, we have audit and risk and we're constantly working through stuff
Yeah.
on an ongoing basis across all manner of activities within council. But, there's some general, high-level useful things here that are worthwhile doing. How are we supposed to know what to do? And where's the
What
Yeah.
next? Yep.
So my expectation for us is that, so Tom Dyer's on the liaison group. I would expect him to be reporting back on that to me as chief executive, and then I would push that through to Gretchen at joint committee level. So my recommendation is you expect Kev to deal with this, because this is operational stuff we should be doing.
Mm.
And that liaison group should be leading most of it.
I have
Good one.
very little
Good.
visibility of that.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't go away from here. It's great it's been brought forward. We now need to work on these matters. Yep. And it sounds like through that staff leadership group, that would be the place to start on that. Sorry, we've got everyone's hands up as well. So Toma, you're next.
I just wondered on that limited visibility of council risk reduction activity. We've had our EMOs presenting to audit and risk, and obviously some of these risks do feature on our register. Is there a way that the data can be captured at a regional level and then shared with this group? Is that something that we would be expecting the EMOs to be plugging into the system, or should that be coming from our chief executive to be collated in some way of what risks align across the district for each council with the CEDM plan?
It should be being done at a group level. It shouldn't have to come back to this through the CEs,
Mm.
the email officers. It should be looping back through CEDM. Would be my expectation.
Go around the table, Gary.
Okay.
Yep.
For us, we will have things in our LTP we expect to have there. There will be, there has been an ongoing one around it, having a new base in Waitaki for the local activity, but we haven't had it reporting through in this way to the Performance Audit and Risk Committee. So I'll have talked with our chair of that and just raise how we might do that, and have a chat with Alex, her notes online there. Just to be clear about what we want, the level of detail that I think we need councillors to understand and engage with. So it was a very good reminder. Thank you.
Yep. Brian.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. Look, it's nothing like being
Microphone.
inundated.
Brian?
Nothing like being inundated to miss the obvious, and it grasses me up because I was sitting there, I'm quite sure it's there. But I know that in all fairness, in the audit and risk, no, we haven't. We've been focused on that more than what have you. So we've done our LTP, but that doesn't mean we couldn't thread it through the audit and risk at any point. So while Dave's not here, I'll touch base with him tomorrow.
Yep, thanks. All right, we're probably done on that matter. On to, we need to actually move the recommendation, which is probably just noting. Where is it? Yep, receives and notes. Oh, thank you. Somebody want to
Move
do
that.
that? Gary and Brian, all in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Right, number 2 is our finance update, and we have a new and more sleek approach to the reporting plan.
And I'm aware that it's always an ongoing issue with the level of finance reporting that the committees want to see. And we have previously provided perhaps a bit more detail per line. One of the challenges we had with the ORC has gone to a new finance system in the last financial year, and it's Matt has certainly found it very difficult to try and get the level of detail he would like to put into this report. Suffice to say that currently I think we're sitting at around about 5% under budget for their expenditure, so everything's tracking along quite nicely, and it's in spite of the extra expenditure with the flood response last year.
Yeah. Balanced off by some underspent due to vacancies, it seems, yep. So, yeah, slightly different, style of reporting, unless anyone, wants to comment on a different style, does have the information that we need there probably at this level. And the recommendation is simply to receive it. Yep, moved and seconded, Tamara and Jules, all in favour, aye, against, carried. Right, this one is a response team proposal and was authored by Matt, so I'm assuming, Glenn, that this one's for you as well. Which, yeah, is probably one of the meatier things for us to consider here today. We're not just noting and receiving in this instance, we're thinking about establishing a new unit. So, Glenn, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So we're conscious that there is no New Zealand response team south of Canterbury, and it's something that I think Matt has flagged in the past as a potential activity for us. And really to date, we've been reliant on the local Red Cross team as being sort of a quasi response team available to us to go and do a lot of the field type work that they have done quite nicely for us in the past. Red Cross as an organisation is focusing its response activities much more towards being largely around psychosocial support in a civil defence centre, really effectively removing themselves from a risk type environment by being out in the field and emergency events, which leaves us exposed in terms of a deployable resource to assist councils going out and doing reconnaissance, wide area impact assessments, those types of activities that the Red Cross team has to date done for us. So we have been approached by some members of that team that feel as though that there's an opportunity now for us to look at establishing a New Zealand response team in Otago, and effectively put to us a proposal whereby they would be operating as a standalone unit. They wouldn't be like most of the New Zealand response teams are run and fully funded and what have you through councils. Their proposal is that they are effectively self-funding based on the model that the Upper Hutt New Zealand response team operates under, but that would require still some support from local councils and Emergency Management Otago through things like training, possibly even support around assistance with accommodating a vehicle that they might have and a training venue, those sorts of things. So the process for a formally recognised New Zealand response team is that it needs to be endorsed and approved by KEG. So really what we're looking for from this committee is guidance that there is an identified need for a response team in Otago, and for us then to start to put wheels in motion to prepare a detailed paper for KEG on a proposal and how they might operate.
Thanks, Glenn. So, yeah, I guess there's probably two ways that it's normally done, isn't there? There's either a standalone unit, and there's Upper Hutt, isn't it, that does it that way, and I think Tairāwhiti are thinking about doing it that way, and then often can be run through councils, I think. But I guess an advantage you might correct me, but would be that if it's a standalone unit, it may be able to be deployed in other instances, like could be doing search and rescue work. It could be doing things when there's not an emergency as well, so that would keep everyone active and trained and also fully utilised, well, you know.
Utilising those skill
more
sets
often,
in
yeah,
a
exactly.
broader area.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. I had a question as well, but I've forgotten what my question was. So I might go to any other questions and I will have thought of it by then. Tamar.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about this, especially given they have approached you hoping to utilise their skill sets. I guess there are some identified benefits to them being effectively a standalone. One of them I would imagine being the ability to generate funds for themselves from sources outside of council. But I wondered if you saw any issues with them being standalone and if there would be any benefits that you would prefer them to be an in-house group.
I can't see any real benefits in them being in-house. I think for us, some of the benefits of them being standalone is a lesser burden on us in terms of supporting them. I think if they were a council managed team, you'd effectively need a full-time staff member just to manage all the issues around the volunteers and the equipment and what have you. Whereas as a standalone team, by and large, they would manage those aspects of it. They would still be wanting some support from us in terms of delivery of training and what have you. So it's a much lower burden on us to have them as a standalone team. Equally, I think the opportunity, the challenge for having a response team that's dedicated is the relative lack of operational opportunities for them to gain experience, whereas again, standalone, they can offer their services to search and rescue and other organisations that have more frequent events and therefore maintains those skill sets.
And I assume that the next part to come back would cover things like liability if we were asking them to deploy to a certain area, who's responsible for their safety and well-being, but also I guess recognising that sometimes in emergency people need to get their hands dirty, and it's great if there's people who have previously had a go at some of the things that we would be asking them to undertake.
Yes, and from a controller's perspective, those issues are always there for any tasking that a controller is doing, regardless of which organisation they're getting to do that. So for us, it's probably more around the issues around when we are supporting them in activities, what liability might there be on us, and whether it be, I'm trying to think of, we're assisting them with a training activity and something happens in that training activity, those sorts of issues. So just want to make sure we've got all our I's dotted and T's crossed.
And the final question that I wondered was, obviously a number of areas, including Canterbury and Wellington, had more than one group. How many people are they usually looking for per response group?
So a minimum of operational response group is 8, which isn't a lot.
Yeah.
And realistically, I would expect that a more fully functional team is probably in the order of 24 to 30. But that would ensure effectively being able to have an operational team of 8 in any given.
And you could potentially separate those out if you had 30, but you were responding to something that was ongoing, you could deploy them as separate teams, or that would be up to them?
Yeah, one of the value of any response team, regardless of which organisation they come from, is if they've got the right skill sets, they're great leaders in response, and the ability for them to break into smaller teams to lead spontaneous or community response activities is a real asset.
Mm-hmm. Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, I just see a lot of crossover with our rural search and rescue and our FENS with what they do. And probably, I imagine if we were setting this up separately, there may be quite a strong cross-pollination between those different groups. Is it worth looking at broadening the remit of search and rescue to this, or is it relatively distinct and need to be operated distinctly? Is it a case of people doing search and rescue want to do that particular part of response?
It probably comes down to the training burden. Yes, the types of activities that we're wanting response teams to do are a lot physical urban, rather than, a lot of the search and rescue activity is rural. But also a lot of it is around the reconnaissance, working in flood risk environments. A lot of that sort of more specialised training that needs to be done. So to put that training burden onto search and rescue teams as well, I think could be problematic. But again, land search and rescue is a great asset and has been used in the past. Having a team of specialised CDM trained volunteers that could effectively be working alongside. And again, there's an opportunity where you split the teams up, and so you've got a good skill set mix between the groups. Yeah. Okay.
Brian.
Thank you. Somewhere in the report, I can't find it, it said that it was day-to-day operation was going to be community funded. And in my experience, you're the flavour of the month the first couple of years, you get your funding, then you drift off, and all of a sudden the group spend a lot of time selling raffle tickets to each other. If we're going to do this, why aren't we setting them up on a fair and structured basis? If it's council, then why isn't it council? And then the second one is, you think that there's an emergency happening, we all gather, this group's up to the side, who's the boss? In the middle of the night when civil defence says you do that and you do that, and then someone's over here, who is the boss of the night when the button gets pushed?
In relation to the response teams,
Yeah.
they would be working under either operations or welfare within your.
But they're still doing exactly what they're doing now.
Absolutely.
Right, that's,
Yeah.
okay, back to the funding.
It's a good question, and I think the group that have approached us are realistic about what the costs would be in establishing a response team. They seem reasonably confident that they have mechanisms to get support to get that up and running. Whether realistically they can continue long term without some form of financial support from councils,
Do you have a figure that you can say, ballpark?
I couldn't have much.
I'm just sort of
Yeah.
thinking that we're, have a.
I think that's a good issue to make sure is addressed in the paper
Just
that goes
cut
to
through
Keith.
so they can focus on
Yeah.
what they're doing instead of the raffle tickets.
Richard, do you want to say something?
Just the direction of the NEMA review too is looking at community-led response. That's something that the government are very keen on. So they'll be aware that you don't get all these groups stood up for nothing. Funding of the system is another key theme that's coming through that national review, as is staffing of council operations and coordination centres. So these sort of things will all be in the mix in terms of, if we're going to expect these groups to stand up and support our other formal functions like FENS and Landsar and others, what's going to keep the lights on? So those sort of questions need to be put through that central government review of the system as well.
Wellington's the master of unfunded mandates at the moment.
I won't get into that.
Jules.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, I'm aware of a marine search and rescue group in Dunedin, and a land search and rescue group in Dunedin. Where would this group fit vis-a-vis those other two groups? And there may even be some other group above and beyond the two, the marine and the land, that I don't know about. So
Effectively alongside, in the same way that as the Red Cross welfare support team is operating at the moment, and in an activation, they get pulled in along with land search and rescue, wherever else the EOC needs to be able to go out and do that work. And again, I would be expecting that this group is doing a lot of cross training with those other groups as well.
yeah, but like in the first instance, if there's something on land or something marine, those two named groups would deal with it? No?
No, not necessarily.
Different.
So, again, with the likes of the October floods, you know, the Red Cross team were pulled in quite early into the Dunedin EOC, by some time before the likes of Land Search and Rescue came in to assist.
Oh,
If you look
yeah.
at the tasks
Yeah.
on page 22 of the agenda and they run over to page 23. I see this group as more of a generalist response support, which is what Red Cross do. They fill all sorts of roles, you know, going back to my DCC days, and that they were always in providing some support in all sorts of areas. Very good generalists with some specialist skills as well. Those other Landsar and Marine Search, they are specialists and they're there to do specific roles when specific things happen. The value in this group is that they can provide cover in any number of areas and will be trained in a whole lot of different things. But I think if you look at that list of bullet points, you'll see it's more of a generalist support to ensure that councils are able to respond properly in events, because resourcing is always difficult, and that's what Red Cross have done for years.
Yeah.
So I remember what my question was. It was coastal Otago response team proposal, but this is an Otago response team that could be deployed right across the region. Yeah, but would probably be based here, or would they have personnel perhaps throughout the region? How would it work?
Well, certainly the makeup of the current group that have approached us are Dunedin based. And it is coastal resource, Dunedin's a logical location for that. And I think that's something for this committee to be considering, is that you know, whilst this would be a regional resource, this probably isn't our end state. We do get a response team up and running on the coast. What's next? Do we need to be looking at how that might actually work inland as well? So I think this gives us an opportunity to get a team established and look at what the pros and cons are with it before progressing further.
Any other questions? Okay, we have recommendations there. Yeah, should be hopefully clear enough there. Request Emergency Management Otago to assess the proposed establishment of a coastal Otago response team and provide a full report for the May KEG meeting. And then I guess what happens from that KEG meeting, I guess it's over to the KEG, whether they support something like this in principle, and then if there are any financial ramifications, they would come back. But at the moment, we don't know if there are or what they would be. So it's basically in principle, do we like this approach or not, giving a steer to the KEG. Does somebody care to move it, or do they want to move something else? Happy to move. Tamer, Gary is seconding. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We are up to is this Lifelines update? Yep. And so Mel, is it Mel this morning? Yep.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just thanking you for your update, which, yeah, we've read, but yeah, feel free to take us through any highlights.
That's great. So I'll take the Lifelines update as read. I'd like to note the new addition on page 29 of the new Lifelines work plan for 2025-26, and happy to take any questions that may come from that.
Having a quick look. Yeah, there's a work plan update, isn't there?
Yes,
And
it's the
some risks associated with those as well.
Yes, these risks were identified in the Otago vulnerability assessment that was completed last year. on the table one for the item 1 and 2, we've got them as a high risk because we do not have them in place currently. So they are being classed as a top priority for the group to work together, deliver, and to test and exercise. It's one thing to have a plan, but you've got to test to see if it works. So that would fall under the training and exercising on item 3.
It's great to have the risks identified so that you can prioritise and work on them. So that's really good. Thanks for that. Any questions? Tamar.
Thank you, and thanks for that, Mel. Love seeing the risk matrix there. It's very helpful. When we're talking about investigating if any New Zealand universities have master's students or anything like that, are we looking internationally as well if there's any work out there that can assist?
That's a great question. I'll take that on board. For a bit of context, I learned last week that Otago Regional Council's Natural Hazards team are already starting a project very similar to this. And I inquired if we could put some critical infrastructure layers into it for riskscape, and that is a high potential. So this project is potentially already in the works, but I can make inquiries if it's been done internationally as well. But if we've got it going in-house already, I think that's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And then I was just having a look through the Lifelines group meeting minutes, and I know it's a bit of a shame that Mayor Lewis isn't here because I know he's very active and engaged in that group. And I looked through those attendees and I looked through the notes and the updates, and I feel disappointed that we are not as active as we could be. And I note that in the report earlier that there was some concern from you that we weren't getting the buy-in that was required from some of the utilities providers who are obviously supposed to be front and centre of this stuff, but we should be leading it. So how do we build on that expectation that if, and I see there's an apology from our council, but nobody sent instead, there were reps from DCC, ORC and QLDC there, but none from the other 3 councils. Who would you like to see prioritising that and ensuring that if the person who's meant to be there is not there, someone else is going? Because I don't think that we can be expecting some of our partner agencies and stakeholders to be turning up if we're not represented there.
That's another great question, and we encourage, if they know they're not going to be able to make, to nominate a delegate to attend on their behalf. Example, Quinton Peniel from your council, he apologised that day because of the flash flooding and hailstorm down in Roxburgh the day before, so they were busy, and that's understandable. But if they could send a representative either from the infrastructure team or roading and or Three Waters, just so there's some coverage across the critical utilities within the council, that would be really encouraged.
Thank you. We can take that message on board to our respective councils. That would be good. Yep. Any other questions? No? Okay. We're just receiving and noting once again with this one. So somebody care to move? Tamar, I can second. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Paper, our 5th paper anyway, is the Mana Whenua iwi Facilitator update. Maureri, I think, is online today, and just highlights us to a little wee bit of possible uncertainty around that role funding, but yeah, we can have a look at that if it arises. But is there anything else, Mo, that you wanted to touch on with us?
No, kia ora. No, that's all I wanted to talk to you about, was basically what's there.
Good one. Well, hopefully that's fairly straightforward from what people have read, but if there are any questions there, feel free to ask them. Yep, Tamar.
Thanks, Mo. That must be a little bit stressful for you, I would imagine. I wondered if there was anything that you need from this group in terms of support for the role, or if there is anything that the CEDM group need to hear from us, see from us, around highlighting the importance of the role.
Yeah, kia ora. Yeah, look, I'm expecting to find out either tomorrow or earlier in the week next week, where everything's going to land. I can only really portray what I portrayed there today. As we move along, I think I'll be able to manoeuvre on some of these, and I'd definitely be looking for support from our Sedum group and whoever else has seen us of value. Kia ora.
That's great. Thanks for bringing this to our attention, and then for we can, you got Gary signalling to me.
Suzanne's
Oh, cool.
just come
Yeah.
on.
Oh, great. Thanks, Suzanne. We'll give you a chance to comment, but yeah, it was really good to have this so that we can be aware of what's happening and lend support where we can. So, Suzanne, did you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Kia ora koutou. You just wanted to say that it is slightly difficult, and it's an internal te runanga o Ngāi Tahu Meta, and our runanga as a contract holder is in discussion with the CE on this matter, and Mauriri is our wonderful worker and facilitator, and we will certainly be supporting to see this initiative continue and continue to be resourced, because we're just really starting to get into a good place with it. So, kia ora. Thank you for your support on that.
Kia ora. Yeah, we realise it's a sensitive matter at the moment, an employment one as well. So just really for our awareness at this point, and we will wish you all the best, Mauriri, as you find some information out, and then no doubt we'll be able to get into the next stage if we need to. But at the moment, it's, like we said, just for our awareness. So the what have we got here? We've got noting the restructuring and what's happening around that area, and receiving the report. Unless there's any other questions, no. So Brian's moving, Tamar's seconding. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Mo. So the sixth one is our group plan update, and we're simply receiving and accepting the report. Andy, is Andy with us? So, yeah.
Yeah, kia ora, everyone.
There he is. Welcome, Andy. Thanks for your report. Did you want to go over anything particularly?
Just to summarise a couple of points, if I may. As presented to this group in December, we intend to update the group plan. This is a strategic document with a 10-year window. In creating this plan, we will meet the guidelines in terms of the content. We'll begin with a risk assessment next week, and then in drafting timeline, which is shown in the report, the intent is to break the work down into manageable chunks with monthly deliverables, bringing in partners from councils as socialised through the liaison group, with a target date for the workable draft at the 2nd of October. This will be forwarded to NEMA for their technical input and sign-off, culminating in a ministerial review. We anticipate that the plan will be live by first week February 26. So unless there are any questions, and you receive this report. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any questions that spring to mind? I've got a bit of a timeline there of how this will come together. Yeah, it seems like quite a big program there. So wishing you all the best of luck in that, and noting that there's a writing team there you've got with a whole range of different partners as well. So coordinating all of that is going to be quite a massive task. I can see when it's the draft 3rd of October, hopefully. And then what happens from there? Does it come back to us, or how's it handled once you've got your draft?
Yeah, I'll go to the designers, and when it's in a marketable state, it will go to NEMA Regional Partnership Unit for technical review. We're going to short circuit the normal process for that by bringing NEMA at the beginning, and this work plan has been agreed with the advisors, so that's really a rubber stamp exercise. An important step is public submissions. We are required to go to the public and to convene any hearings and to receive written reports on our intended plan. The time allowed for that is between 1 and 3 months. So we're going for 1 month for that, with a tentative date for any public submissions first week of December. And then there's the Christmas, fortunately, but just for an extra week to monthly timeline as well over the holiday period. So yeah, it's ambitious with renewable. Yeah, we need the support from councils so that we get and indeed we get council as we take out our tender, which will impact on the day-to-day activities of our staff and also some of the key outcomes expected from the partners of the CDM group, which ultimately is the council.
So the leads on this then is the CDM group and NEMA, sorry, from what you were saying, rather than this group here having the oversight. Is that right?
Yeah, technical input from me and ultimately ministerial sign-off. This is this group isn't technical. It's a command-related group. We're looking for your support at the highest level within our region to actually prosecute this intended work program to meet the deliverables as established.
Good one. Yep, that's good. Nice and clear.
I just had one question.
Amen.
For the public submission part, who oversees that process? Does that sit with ORC or the TAs, or?
No, we will manage.
You manage it, great.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
In conjunction with our partners on the CDM group.
Thank you.
Richard?
No, that's right. I'll just imagine that get some clarity around the role for KEG and the joint committee in the process. So we can bring that back.
Yeah, there isn't one. That's all good.
there might be
We just
nothing,
know
but we'll
that
just
it's
make sure it's
happening.
clear.
Good one. Yep, thank you. Any other questions? Receiving and accepting the report, I can move that. Somebody want to second it? Jules, thank you. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. I think we have basically just got the NEMA report, but there was a report on exercise for Tata, which was just so is that just meant to be appended to one of the other reports?
To the work plan, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. I see. It's just part of that paper. Good one. So yeah, we are up to NEMA update. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, kia ora koutou. Great to be there. Sorry, great to be here virtually. Sorry, I can't be there in person. Congratulations, all of you. This has been a really interesting meeting for me. There's a couple of reasons for that. You've hit quite a few high notes on things that are relevant to the system, and in particular, Richard Saunders mentioning earlier about the NZRT discussion and the framing of the MSIP and community-led response, and that really ties into my NEMA update, the first part of it around the government's response to the recommendations in the NSWE inquiry and the emergency management bill. And that talks to the level of engagement by this group in that process. So thank you for that, and really good to see it permeating your discussions. I'm going to take my update as read. There's a couple of things that have come up in this meeting that I think I need to speak into. One is particularly it's around the group plan and your group plan process. And I just want to clarify some of the things that Andy McKenzie Everett said. All of it's true. So you relax, Andy. I'm not going to get hypercritical. The group plan is a statutory document. The joint committee has a role in terms of adopting and signing it off. NEMA does a technical review, and that is a review that starts the assurance process that you're hitting your legislative requirements in terms of the relevant section, which is section 49(2) of the CDM Act, and there's a whole lot of stuff in there that Andy will be across legislatively, but also in terms of the DGL. So you absolutely do have a role, and perhaps maybe for the next joint committee we can, I'll work with Matt and Glenn around maybe how we can maybe clarify that up through the KEG and support you in terms of that understanding. But the other thing which I think has really interested me about this particular meeting, and it was really good to hear, was the discussion around risks and that risk table with the dots and the arrows. And the two risks that stood out, the visibility of risk reduction activities in the TA space and the group plan LTP alignment risk. Great discussion on that table, and a comment by you, Gretchen, around are we doing enough hazard specific planning? Once again, I'm going to go back to Richard Saunders' comments around the Otago Regional Council, and all the councils are doing work in this space, and really the focus around you. I think one of the focuses for you in your group plan will be connecting the dots, which is exactly what Richard was mentioning earlier, making sure that these things are clear, and the group plan is one of the places where you can do that. And I'll give you an illustrative recent example. We had the Wairoa flood events last year. Small township on the east coast of the North Island, a small portion of that community, about 400 homes, low-lying, vulnerable to flooding on the Wairoa River, and the management of the Wairoa River is managed by the regional council. So there's a specific hazard which would keep a local mayor and a local controller and a local council awake at night. There is a management plan in place for the management of the stock banks and the river opening as it goes out to the estuary. And those are the sorts of things which can be teased out. I mean, these things have been done by the regional council, but these are things that can be called out and identified in a plan around this is what has been done to manage that local hazard and that risk. And to the point around the LTP, sure, it can be a line item in there around what the level of investment is around, the OPEX in terms of stock bank maintenance, or the whatever is invested in the river opening process. So it's connecting the dots, and that was a really useful discussion for me to hear, and absolutely keen to get in behind Andy and Matt and Glenn and the team as you go through this process for the rest of the year. I'll stop talking because you've got more on the agenda, but I'm happy to answer any questions and really excited to be part of that whole group plan process. Well done.
Thank you. We haven't really got more on the agenda, and that was really good to have that discussion with you, and just, what's the next step for us in bringing this all together and be as transparent and robust as we can, because you're right, there's so much that is happening. It's just, where do we put it in the right place and track it, and ensure that we're all aware of it, because we're all a team in this together, aren't we? And all of our councils and all of our different partners that work with us as well. So if you can help us on that journey through the oversight and awareness that you've got around the country, that'll be really good. So thanks for that conversation. That's
no problem.
helpful. Are there any questions though? Brian.
I shouldn't even ask, I know, and I'm not being smart here. When it was touched on the Wairoa Riverbend block.
You might have to turn on your.
Yeah, I'm all right. Touched on the Wairoa Riverbend block, that brought to mind in recent weeks, once again, the annual Clutha Riverbend block, the river. Okay, so we've identified the risk, we've identified it. And I'm not being smart here. You've identified that gravel has to stay in the river for the fish, so nothing happens. And dollars to donuts, that river will block and cause a flood. So what do we do when you've identified, because you said Craig Little would be awake at night. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be awake at night when Clutha goes under. Well, what do you do? We've said it.
Richard, do you want to talk about?
I said I shouldn't, but this is the nuts and bolts of identifying the risk.
So yeah, the risk,
Talk about
the
Moira.
risk being raised by you and the community, which we're aware of and has been. So the action that's been taken is that NIWA are doing a full survey of the channel to compare it to all of the other data we hold on the channel and work out whether there is capacity constraints because of that gravel or whether it's actually just existing gravel that's shifted into a bank, but it's always been there. So we need to get the data to show what the next step in that activity would be. So I guess without wanting to litigate that particular issue, it's an example of how those risks are tabled with our hazards, or in this case, engineering. And we do take them serious, and we just need to go through an exercise to decide what the best solution is. And in this case, the NIWA have already been engaged and they're underway to do a full bathymetric survey, I think is the right term. And they will then be able to report back, and you'll get full copies of all that. We'll be able to say the capacity in the channel and the river was this X years ago. Based on the survey we've conducted, it's now this, and the result will be that there either needs to be some removal to maintain channel capacity, or the capacity is there. It just looks different because of where the gravel's currently sitting. But I think the key point out of Mike's discussion is that there is something being done, and it will be fully transparent in terms of the information being shared with your team and your community.
Our problem is you go from one risk to the next, and your council and our council is every single time we take a reputational kicking. But I didn't actually know anything. You know, we were in the ODT last week, we were both getting a kicking. I never knew that anything was happening, so consequently I'll say that the public doesn't.
And through our committee, and I think we answered a media question on it too, but anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, it's those risks, Richard. I didn't have a clue anything like that.
Reasonably well known, yep. Jules?
So I've got two things. One's a comment, the other's a question. The comment is in terms of Wairua, I've talked extensively to Craig Little about this quite recently, the last month or so. And they've now having a community consultation and discussion, and it's boiled down to there's two options for channels for making a new channel out to the sea for the river. And neither that which involves two different marae, two different communities, reasonably close to each other, but yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, but now there's a big, nobody wants it. Except they want the flood risk mitigated, but they don't want their marae to be taken over for risk. So it's an interesting one, but that's nothing to do with it. But I thought just to mention, to say that just to get the answer, to get an answer chosen by the community is tricky enough.
So in response to that, if I can, Jules, I don't think it's my place as a mayor, it's ORC. So I was always I looked up Craig, and good on Craig, and he was proactive for his community, but it's a space that I think is incongruous with a mayor. It's ORC's. So I'll be nervous to jump in and tell you to blow up the river mouth or something like that, because that's none of my business.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay, so the next one is the question. And so in response to October and Dunedin, we're putting in the first instance, some extra pipes and pumps around the perimeter of the region, of the area, which should make a significant difference. And so one thing that had not entered my mind until coming to this meeting today was the linking of that to CDM in the LTP, and the fact that is risk reduction for the future, and it really does feed into CDM. So my question is, which is a little bit much the same as the earlier question I asked, where do we find the information? I'd like to be across it, so just to make sure that it happens. So where do I find the information that you think we should be putting into that LTP to make the connection between our business as usual and our risk reduction, so that our LTP does talk about civil defence and what we've done in this case, because of course there are other risks. We had a big landslip as well. So there's a range of things that are worthy of discussion. And I think especially given the whole South Clean Future program that we're on with the ORC, it'd be good to have a rundown of that in the LTP so that not only can people see this is what we're doing immediately, this is to be discussed in the future, and some, well, I've got a couple of concrete ideas that could go in there. There needs to be a wee bit of discussion as to whether they will or not, but there is actually a plan, but that is also good to have that linked into our, well, the risks that were outlined earlier. So therefore, I'd like to see it, and some more detailed information as to what we do, what do we need to tick off to improve our appearance for civil defence. I think what actually happened was fine, but I mean, there's obviously more things that we can do better. So not only the appearance, but the actuality of what we've done, because we've had a response that is involving some risk mitigation for the future. So trying to pull all that together. Is there any place to go from my checklist of all the things that are required or recommended, or what? How do I figure out what needs to go in?
Glenn's going to go first. I won't
So
go answering that one.
I'm just going to deflect this one to Mike.
Oh,
and ask Mike if he has got some good exemplars of around the country where you are seeing reporting to joint committees on council risk reduction activity.
Thanks, Glenn. First of all, the group plans have been identified as generally as being not fit for purpose in terms of identifying the hazards, the risks, and the risk reduction measures that are needed. That's not to say that the work isn't being done. And to your point earlier, my response is we need to tell our story better. My background prior to this role, I was a land drainage operations manager in Christchurch City, and you may remember Flockton Basin in Christchurch flooding mightily for a couple of years after the earthquakes, and the massive amount of investment that we put into that part of the city in terms of pumps and bypasses and all that sort of stuff. Now, they are absolutely risk reduction investments, and that was a commitment that was put into under urgency, was chucked into the annual plan, but then ongoing commitments into the long-term plan. We need to tell that story better in the group plan, and to Richard's point earlier, connect the dots so that someone in the community who is reading your group plan knows that what the hazard is, what the risk is, and who was and what the decision around managing that risk has been. And that is also identifying the risks that aren't being managed, that you may choose not to mitigate or invest in the reduction because it's too expensive, not practical, whatever. We just have to live with it and have other ways of managing it. So my response is we need to connect the dots, tell our story better in the LTP, and bring that story through into our group plan. Because the work is being done, the investment is being made. But also, I think probably a better job around understanding the residual risks.
Right. I've just got it really simple, but the group, we need to link the group plan to risk reductions to the long-term plan and tell the whole story better. Does that cover it?
Yep.
So you did say that group plans are no good at the moment. We've got a plan here for a new group plan. Or how do we know that new group plan is going to be the good plan?
No, okay. What I'm saying, okay, maybe I could frame that a little bit more cannily. The reports into the North Island severe weather event, which looked at Auckland anniversary floods, Tairāwhiti, Hawke's Bay, and Northland identified that the group plans weren't fit for purpose. And I think one of the challenges there is that we're working with 23-year-old legislation that hasn't kind of kept up with that we're working with 20 old ledge. The focus areas, one of the focus areas, I've actually got a presentation up in front of me, which I have to be a little bit careful about how I speak into it because it's about the bill, but I don't mind. It's an overview of the types of options that are being discussed in the bill at the moment. And one of the focus areas in the bill, which is around supporting and enabling local government. And one of the things that the Minister will be talking to stakeholders like this joint committee and councils about is the rolling refresh of national, regional CDM plans and interregional planning and national standard settings and assurance. So it is hot on the agenda for the bill, and I think it's going to be something that's going to get talked about more in the coming months as the Minister travels around the country and speaks into the bill. I just have to be a bit careful because he's going to cabinet on this on the 14th and 15th, I think, and then it's up to him to kind of speak into it in more detail. But it's been picked up in the reviews as they're not fit for purpose, and the bill is going to try and address that.
Right. So he's going to, and the bill is about supporting and enabling local government. Will there be funding with it? Does that mean funding?
I'm not being glib, but I did actually note down someone in the room there said the central government are the masters of unfunded mandates. So I think that might be where that comment could be coming from. I'm not sure what the level of funding will be for any of this, but it's a question certainly that from a group like yourselves would be able to field to the Minister. I don't have any visibility of it.
Some of the
Yes.
joint
I didn't
chairs
expect that you
feel
would.
Yeah.
You know, somewhat.
Some of the joint
I
chairs
acknowledge
feel
I
that
acknowledge it.
question to him. Yeah, he did manage to back that one away as well, but it's at a higher level at the moment than working on. Yeah, exactly. So we haven't got down to that sort of planning, and we won't for some time by the sounds of it. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike, for coming and talking to us, and that was a really good discussion. So yeah, really appreciate that.
No problem. I'm going to have to duck away now, so I won't be there for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, thanks for bearing with us through the rest of the meeting. So yeah, we appreciate that. We'll see you later.
Problem. Thanks very much. Bye.
Now, I think we've covered everything. There's some opinions. Okay, sure. Yeah, you're welcome to speak to that. Yep.
Yes, so just the last part of the agenda document is the work plan report, which was I glossed over in Matt's manager's report. That is effectively it's an appendix to his report, and tries to do it in a way that's not a lot of words, but gives a reasonably good indication to this committee as to the progress that we are making on activities that were identified in our annual activity plan, and then with the summary at the back around training activities and then community resilience activities, with a note that once we had compiled this report and put it together and doing a bit of sense checking, realised some errors in particularly the graphs that we had for the capabilities of the community resilience groups. So we've tabled just an addendum to that with the updated information, recognising that our community resilience strategy has identified that this particular training that we'll offer to community resilience groups, and one of those is health and safety, and yet we haven't put that health and safety training package together as yet, so we can't really hand on heart say that any of those groups are what we would consider 100% operational. Many of them are functional and have been tested in anger, but to comply with what we're putting into our strategy, we actually need to deliver on that training before we can say that they're fully operational. But happy to field any questions on the work plan report.
Very well presented here, and once again, tracks the risks and where we're at as well and capability as well around those groups. So yeah, it seems like it's a good new format there. I haven't done a deep dive into all of those risks, but you can't see any red ones anyway. So that's something. Are there any that you wanted to touch on other than just the correction? Yep. Okay, well, that's there for our awareness anyway. We don't need to move anything because that was just part of Matt's first report. And yeah, we're just having our agenda of space for the next meeting, but I don't know whether that's been set yet. So yeah, we'll come back to you on that one. And other than that, we're all done unless anyone had anything they, oh yeah, Brian.
I've got one more question, and there's a couple of references here to the Alpine Fault, and I know it's an ancillary question with a tenuous thread, but I think we all took focus on the Alpine Fault when we saw that video of the button got pushed in Fjordland and off it went. And the other day, in line with the Alpine Fault, but out at sea, was that relatively large earthquake. How far out, because I've always, it's Fjordland, and then I thought the other day, how far out does the Alpine Fault go out to sea, or does it go out to sea?
Largely it doesn't. I couldn't tell you exactly where that. And so effectively what you have is south of the South Island, you have the Pusica Trench and the Pusica Fault, and that is a subduction zone. And I really should commit to memory, but I think from memory, that's where the Australasian plate is sliding under the Pacific plate. And then north of the South Island, you have the Hikurangi Trench, which is where the opposite is happening, and the Pacific plate is sliding under the Australasian plate, or it's the other way around, as the case may be. So what you've got then is effectively is the Alpine Fault in the middle, which is where the twisting and deformation is taking place. So now the earthquake earlier this week is not on the Alpine Fault.
It was dead smack in line, that's what I thought,
Yeah,
should we be looking, but thank you.
Part of that plate boundary between those two tectonic plates.
Good one.
Gretchen, next meeting is 12 June.
Oh, way. Thank you. All right, we are, oh yeah.
I just wanted to, because it didn't come up when we went through it with Andy, was just that report back on the exercises. I thought was actually really helpful, especially how it had been broken down into the identified gaps for the different TAs. There was a lot of overlap, but then there were also some challenges for some councils and not others. And I had some feedback. It was a really massive day for our council. Almost all of the staff were involved. They don't want to do it every quarter like I suggested when they said they wanted to do it frequently, but they thought every 6 months would be achievable. Very well received, well run, great to have the partner agencies like PENS, St John, Defence in the room as well. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable, and a lot of staff who that's not their day-to-day safe space for operating really enjoyed the opportunity. You could see there are some really nervous people going into that. We are going to be asking a lot of people who find the idea of operating in an emergency extremely uncomfortable. So great for them to have practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Taima. And certainly for the KEG meeting in May, the papers will be going through will be both recommendations from the exercise report and the after action report from the flood event last year, and a lot of the recommendations will be the same. So it's just really for this group to note the exercise report and wait for more to come through KEG once they've assessed the recommendations from both those reports.
Great. Good one, yeah, that's good feedback. It was a huge exercise. So yeah, thank you very much to everyone who was involved. We're done, I think. So we'll just close with karakia. Kia tau, te rangi Māori e, ki runga i ngā iwi o te ao. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good one.